All right, Quentin and Sam, thank you guys for coming on the Nervous System Training Podcast. Thank everyone who's been watching. Remember, like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate it. And we've got a guest today, Sam at the Flow Wolf. I followed your page for a while, so I was just excited right now when Quentin told me that you're going to be coming on for today's episode. But thanks for coming on. You are a specialist in scoliosis, but I would say your techniques kind of range a little bit beyond that. Real quick, can you just tell us your story? How did you end up doing what you're doing? What's your background with it, and how'd you get here?
Yeah, right on. Thanks for having me on. I've been on this journey of postural correction, I'd say more intensely the last 7 or 8 years. I had a collection of like the perfect storm of injuries, I think psychological as well as physical, around those teenage developmental years. So in those years, I formed a 85-degree, very severe structural kyphoscoliosis. So a combination of the hyperkyphotic forward neck posture with that lateral bending scoliosis. And that really set in, and I went to an orthopedic surgeon at 18, and he actually, I wasn't in like crippling amounts of pain, and I was still functional. So he's like, I'm not going to recommend surgery. And I think that was for the best in the end, but I didn't really have a path to do something about it after that session. So for the next 20 years, basically, from 18 till in my mid-30s, I just lived with it and ignored it. And around 33 is when I really started feeling compression, and I got choked out, and the system started shutting down. Immune system went down, constipation, chronic fatigue, IBS, aches, pains, acid reflux. All of the symptoms were happening, and it took some months to figure it out, but it was eventually probably the most obvious reason in hindsight, but the compression, that imbalance that I'd been just holding and compensating with for over 15, 20 years had really started to choke me out. And so that really began my more intense journey of looking at, okay, what can I actually do about this? Because I'm going to be in this body for many, many years more. So what can I do to essentially get my life back? And that's kind of taken me on that more recent journey. And I've whittled it down to more or less 3 categories, which I do daily, which is unraveling, aligning, and fortifying. That really kind of sums up my approach to what and how I go about looking at how I can build my best posture.
Interesting.
Interesting.
The terminology you're using, choked out, is I just want to jump into that. Is that how it feels? Is that where that term comes from?
It felt like my life force was being choked out of me. I couldn't generate energy or force in one particular direction. The most obvious symptom that really came up was IBS. It was this inflamed belly. And it was 8 months later, I'm listening to David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, and he was in hospital, and they couldn't figure out, and he remembered he had to stretch, right? His stretching instructor told him he's got thousands of hours of stretching to do in the psoas. And so I did some of those maneuvers. I'm like, oh, this is it. And it turns out, the psoas collection of muscles in that area located directly next to the digestive system. So if you're inflamed and torqued in your psoas, which mine is, very severely torqued around there, you're going to get choking. And so the lymphatic system and the digestive system are right next to that psoas system. So that was, I believe, like the physical and the sensational aspect of being choked out.
Interesting. Sam, real quick, I know you cover this a little bit, but if you go in more detail, like how exactly, because it sounds like this was an injury you acquired in your spine, correct?
I'd say it's an injury combined with a lot of unconscious habits and psychological situations as well. The primary cause, I believe, is, and based off some of the healing I've done recently, I believe it was from a near drowning accident, playing around with a rope tied to a pipeline, crossing a river, a flooded river. And I was kind of like wakeboarding with a rope around my waist, and did that once. And then on my second go, as I was taking off the rope, it slip knotted around my ankle. And so I was caught underwater with one ankle slip knotted, the current of the river kind of tearing apart my other leg, and I couldn't reach to my ankle because the current was so strong. And so I believe during that process, I got quite a lot of groin tearing, as well as that traumatic struggle to try to stay alive, crushing my T10 vertebrae, which is now a hemivertebrae, so a wedge-shaped vertebrae. So it was that event, but I believe it was also just the unconscious habits that I had around then, as well as just no rehabilitation. Just suck it up and get on with it. And yeah, the groin's sore and you're just kind of limping around. I got sprained ankles going on. I got family stuff going on. So I'm just escaping in the computer screen, and I know something's wrong, but I'm just like, I don't know how to do the work. And I'm not like, I'll just do the work another time. And so I think it was a combination of a lot of things there.
So you got caught by the ankle, and you're being basically drowned up current, and that broke one of your vertebrae?
I don't think it broke my vertebrae. I remember I didn't connect the two for quite a while. But what I remember feeling was a very sore groin, right hip, which to this day is still one of the core tension centers in my posture, which I've unraveled mostly, but I still, sense there's still some stuff there. But just that tugging and that yanking and that struggle, I believe, applied a lot of stress in that particular moment, that then became cemented and compounded as with the poor postural habits in the weeks and months afterwards. Okay. Yeah, quite a. I mean, you could imagine the situation as I was also drowning with water, right? Torquing the diaphragm as well as choking, trying to reach my ankle underwater. You could imagine the crushing that I was trying to do in the system. Yeah. Funnily enough, when I was tired and I couldn't struggle for it anymore, I let go. Actually, when my body relaxed, I was able to actually come to the surface, get one breath, and then I went down again. And that's when I thought I was done. But a friend who didn't know what was happening, who was just playing around as well, he went to go tightrope on the rope that I was tied to, and his weight snapped the rope, and I was released from that situation, in a very impossible situation.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
Now, were you in a severe amount of pain after this event happened? Like, were you thrashed? Did you have to get in an ambulance?
No, I mean, it was I rode the bicycle home, but obviously just in shock, and I just remember those deep breaths. And it turns out those breaths that I'm connecting to are some of the most healing right now. And it's going into that state of drowning, essentially, right? That right, where I can actually connect to where the diaphragm is constricted. And that's where I'm actually starting to remodel parts of my diaphragm during some of these movements that I'm demonstrating online.
Okay. Was your back in a severe amount of pain the next day or later that day?
No, it wasn't the back. I don't think about the back too much at all during that point. I know during those years, I was just on the computer, just forward neck posture into the computer screen, just like, okay, something's wrong, but I'm just ignoring that. It was complete ignorance of the back, but there wasn't, no, I didn't feel the back injury around that time. I don't recall it. I just remember I was just torn up in the groin.
Okay. When did you start noticing that there's a severe dysfunction going on in your thoracic?
16, 17, 18. So that was 2-3 years later when it started becoming pretty obvious.
Okay. And how did that kind of how did that start to manifest? Was it slowly but surely your back is bothering you in class? You look in the mirror, you start noticing oh shit, my posture. How did this kind of snowball?
It's just so quick. Those times go so quick, and you just realize it's there, and it was a lot of hours on the computer, and it was just my mom started seeing it and saying things, and she was against surgery, and so we got X-rays, but it's the system, all they could really do was offer surgery. There wasn't really any physio-based approaches. Much less Roth wasn't very mainstream. This is before 2000s, right? So we're talking the 90s.
Okay, and right now your vertebrae is, what is your vertebrae shaped like now? You described it, but like count me paint a
Yeah,
picture.
the T10 is a wedge-shaped vertebrae. So we've got bit of bit of hyperextension through the cervical thoracic, and it goes into a very severe flexion, kyphoscoliosis, which creates an 85-degree curve with the T10 at the apex of the curve. And the T10 is a wedge-shaped to be able to
Oh, so
to
like
be able
this.
to be a part of that. Yeah, I mean, we're talking instead of a block, we're talking pretty triangle-shaped vertebrae.
Wow, man, this is crazy. This is interesting. Okay, now you kind of just ignored it, and you just kind of put it off and and you just let your body sort of adapt around it until you hit a point of diminishing returns, where the nervous system was literally falling apart because of this like restriction. Where did you take things?
At that point, I'd already been open through my childhood and then my 20s and 30s. I'd done, I'd already started exploring things like breath work and meditation and ecstatic dance and some plant ceremonies and those kind of things. I'd already kind of been light in that healing just in general. But then at 33, I'm like, okay, we have two lives, and when we have one life, when we realize that we have two lives, but the second life begins when we realize we have one. And that was really that moment for me. And the 8 months I spent in, on the edge, really cemented healthy, prioritized healthy habits for me, which when I was able to actually unchoke and unravel, they compounded. And then I'm like, wow, I'm out of pain. I'm healthy. I have energy. And I've unraveled my height here, like I'm getting taller. And so then I'm out of the pain, right? And I've responded to it, but then I'm like, okay, I know that I have to keep this a priority, and I'm kind of curious how far I can go with this. Like how much can I keep going here, and why wouldn't I keep on going? Like I know, I know that I'm in a I've got a challenging relationship with gravity for my life. So I know I need to make this a priority. So that's when I started making content about it, just started exploring, what can be done here. And so where did I begin? I mean, it was beginning with the deep stretching, right? So that's when I had to learn, like, okay, what's good stretching and, flaccid stretching. And I guess I kind of went more intuitive with my workouts in the gym, listening to my body more. What was really the big game changer at that point was that I actually believed I could do something about it, which from that doctor's appointment where, hey, you're just going to have to live with this. That was my belief. I'm just going to have to live with this. There's nothing I can really do about this. So that was really the game changer. As soon as I believed, I can actually do something about it, then I'm like, the way I breathe, the way I move, the way I work out, the way that, I look for techniques and methodologies, they all appeared, and they all start, like I paid attention to them and I started integrating them.
Interesting. Now, Jake, can we throw up like a visual to kind of give like the viewers an idea of what Sam is like working on? Because it's really incredible stuff. It's something I've never seen before in all my years of physiology. And one thing, Sam, that I really like about your approach and your journey is that you really take on like being your own sort of experiments and trying to look at this as like a scientist. Like, what can I observe? What can I feel about myself? What can I experiment with to kind of create a result, instead of just thinking that this technique is fake, this technique is wrong, you only have to do barbells, because training can get very dogmatic in this industry, and
Oh yeah.
not a lot of trainers or coaches know how to be scientists again. And I feel like, as much as you're like, niched as this posture guy, you're really kind of like a kinesthetic scientist trying to figure out what new ways we can fix this, especially if it can fix someone with such a severe disadvantage such as yourself. This could help millions of people if you can create a solid result out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I've resonated with your content as well. You start hearing signal when people speak, as opposed to hearing marketing for their particular methodology. And we can kind of go into the different pieces. I guess the myofascial sky punch is like the one that's really connected with a lot of people, and I think a lot of people have like the mirror neurons have really fired to say, okay, this feels right. There's something in this that feels useful to me, and we can kind of go through some of the different methodologies that I did pick up along the way. And I think it comes from being open to learning from everything and everyone. And I think in my childhood, that was, there's patterns of that, looking around and like, who actually knows who's figured this out? Who's actually knows what's going on? I had to learn from everyone very early on. And so when I, first started the journey, I went down the Schroth rabbit hole. And Katharina Schroth was a German in the 1920s who healed and corrected her own scoliosis and developed a technique. Her daughter wrote a very important book around it, very isometric and some basic gymnastics. But ultimately, the big one that I learned from that method was the empowerment of my breath to rotate my rib cage and my spinal cavities in my upper torso. So the rotational angular breathing was that concept of, when we have that scoliosis, a collapse is actually a 3D collapse. And so that by pressurizing our breath internally, we're actually able to manipulate and derotate the rotation that happens during most scoliosis situations. So that was one of the first stepping stones, was really understanding the power of my breath to rotate internally, which is something that you may not necessarily see if you're looking at these videos.
Yeah, you were talking about this, how like our body, God, how do I put this? Because this is kind of like a concept I never thought about, but the way you're breathing really dictates like the type of pressure that runs throughout like your rib cage and torso, kind of like a, I don't know, maybe like a piston or something like that, which you can shift around, or maybe it's better to look at it as like a water bottle. Like when you push all the air out, like it contracts, and you push all the air and it expands. I guess, can you kind of explain this pressurization with your breathing and the rib cage and what you're feeling?
Yeah, so I see there's two cavities essentially that we're pressurizing on each breath, and that diaphragm is that magical machine in the middle of those things, which is generating this torus field of expansion and contraction around it, which is mind-blowing to think about. But we're essentially pressurizing our lower abdominal cavity, which is more fluid-based, and then our upper cavity, which is more air and breath based. And when we're able to target expansion into parts of our membrane, both the upper and the lower, we're able to apply gentle contraction and then leverage that contraction to create rotation. And so there's a couple of different ways to do it. Like that I'm still exploring. The primary rotational angular breathing being with the rotation of the rib cage backwards. We're really generating forward force through the convex side front of the rib cage, and providing posterior force through the concavity to the side and the back of the concave side of the rib cage. So by creating expansive pressurizing force with the breath in there, accumulating breath in order to create that pressurizing force, we're able to, if our nervous system is open and relaxed and allowing change in the body, I believe we're able to manipulate our musculoskeletal structure there.
Oh, that's just far out. Jake, did you have any questions for I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure this out.
Yeah. Now, I was curious about your influences. You mentioned the German lady, was it Schroth? I don't know if I have that
Yeah,
exactly
Schroth.
right.
So
Yeah. So, but what other people did you find along the way?
yeah,
And then, and I'm curious, as you're listening to your body, as you're finding different schools of thought, um, what's your signal for something that works for you? Like, is it something that you feel in your sessions? Is it something you feel after your sessions? Is it something that when you see it, it makes sense in a certain way? Kind of like, what's been your North Star that's guided you along um,
yeah,
the
I get
development
you.
you've gone down?
Yeah, that's a good question because there's so many out there, right? And especially as these videos have been popping off, I've gotten maybe like 400 suggestions of things to do,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I got to figure out which one's a signal, which one's a noise, and it's like, at first it's which makes rational, logical sense, and then it's felt sense. Like, and I do have the advantage of having a very severe imbalance, which means that things that are corrective, I can feel and see them tangibly, much more than someone with a slight situation would do. And that's kind of what's happening here. Like there's other people who maybe have integrated these techniques, but having such a severe situation, I'm actually able to tangibly show in micro sessions the improvements that happen. So yeah, it's a combination. Yeah, it'd be first logical, rational, then felt. So Schroth is currently the mainstream's best answer to scoliosis and kyphosis for adolescents right now. So if you're lucky, you'll go from a general doctor who will say, go see a surgeon, which, is straight to the most invasive thing to do, but that's kind of where it is now. And if that surgeon is working in your best interest, they will say, go start with a Schroth-trained physio first. That's the mainstream medical institution's best response for this right now. So that's where we're at with that. But from that, I felt like, from Schroth, I didn't learn how to rotate well. She was quite against rotation because of the torque in there, and so I was against it too, just thinking, okay, I'm not going to rotate too much. But from there, it was around then I started doing some cold immersion. I started learning, like during some of the Wim Hof breath holds, to create a sequential chain of tension throughout the body. So if we're, the Wim Hof method being phase one, charging the system, right, all the way in, let go, all the way in, let go, and then you let go, you do a hold, and then you breathe in. And during that breath in, you can, I learned from Daniel Silva, who we did some, hiking into the glacier mountains in Colombia in shorts and sitting in glacier lakes. And, with him, I developed this, this wave of tension through the body from the feet up and from the limbs in. And I was getting some nice, like ringing, juicing kind of sensations through the body. And so that was really cool. And then I went to functional patterns, which is everyone's favorite conversation right now about their marketing and techniques. But I went in there with an open mind to look at, okay, what's going on here, and I would credit the ability to understand rotational torque through the body. I think that was the biggest piece of value that I got through there. I did the 10-week and the functional training system, and just generating that awareness and torque through the body in a rotational way was really a big piece of the puzzle for me, and I am grateful for that. And so, the step pulls and the step pushes were really a connective piece for me to start really looking at this systematically and holistically, a full body approach to this, as opposed to just breathing, rotating here and there, and just being in more of the static Schroth method isometric positions. So that was a big piece, and then it was like it was, what was it? I was down by the river, and that torque. I'd been playing around with the torquing of the hands, combining that with some of the functional patterns lunges, and so then I was like, I just found myself without any equipment. So I'm like, okay. During some T3 raises, I had got some clicking going on here. So I'm like, okay, let me see if I can mic this up and capture this kind of alignment happening. And so I kind of, just fused it all together and listened to the body. And then, the first time I did it, I started with a more corrected stance, but then I'm like, no, like I know that I get more when I start from the curve. And that's kind of a nuance in this, in anyone who's dealing with postural issues, is like, we have these compensated postures that we have to hide our curve, and those create kinetic chains of scaffolding, of fascia and collagen fibers that are supporting us in those compensations. And we have to tear them down, I believe, in order to build a healthier, more flowing and aligned scaffolding for the body. So I went into the curve, and that's difficult for some people, because it's embarrassing to show your ugliest parts, your curvy parts, and so a lot of people are not going into the curve to their own detriment. And so, starting by going into the curve, I was actually able to start that chain of sequential tension from the curve, which is a really, really key piece for anyone who's dealing with, these type of postural compromises. Starting from the curve, feeling the weight through the ground. As I slowly rise, I'm feeling that wave of tension and contraction coming up my legs, and I'm in a unilateral stance, so I'm naturally going to be, my fascial lines are going to be naturally torqued in this position. I'm feeling the torque from the fingertips, right, and the turn of the wrist, maintaining that torque on both sides, and then just sweeping through the upper body. So at the time when the waves of tension from my limbs arrive to my back, I've got a wave going from the bottom to the top, and a wave coming from the outside in through my arms. And so those two waves collide into alignment and create some pretty dramatic adjustments, as you can see. And the breath at that time is really an important piece. And I think it's, in general, a more expansive breath is going to help create alignment. And so I'm usually focusing on a type of pressurized expansion in the concave side of my curve during that movement as well. So I'm really coming at it from every angle and dimension, and squeezing alignment into the body.
Man, this is far out, bro.
I was curious too about it's really interesting.
It is.
What about your name, the Flow Wolf? And we talked at the beginning about you feeling kind of choked. I'm curious if the Flow Wolf is kind of like the antithesis of that choked sensation in some way.
Yeah, and it came to me during the pandemic, and it was like, I was in real estate before this, and I just needed an outlet to kind of share all this stuff that I was going through, and it would flow. I mean, flow. I think that was the real value of what I learned from that being choked out, was that wherever there isn't flow in the body, there's death. And so I knew that flow was something that I wanted to make very important in my life. And the wolf came to me as an animal spirit, the independence, but also the community, the agility, the all-terrainness, right? Being able to survive in these different conditions. I think calling in animal energies has been really really interesting in the process as well. I think that's what we've always kind of done in most of our more ancient cultures.
Wow. One thing, Sam, that I thought about a lot is a part of how I try to come up with experimental training methodologies, or just explaining how training methodologies work in the body to like my audience, to my people. And a lot of it is just what I am sensing through myself and trying to reinterpretate those senses. And I really developed this ability when I started really practicing the Wim Hof methodology back in 2016, after I saw like the Vice documentary. And I'm sure you're probably aware of it too. There is like a level of kinesthetic awareness you unlock when you start really working a lot of these breathing methodologies, because you can really start feeling your central nervous system light up. You never truly forget how that feels. So was that like one of the big assets for you, understanding how to interpret the signals of like your own nervous system when you're doing these things?
And as now I've been kind of figuring out or reading and researching more recently, it's kind of connected and explained things that my nervous system and sensations were already pointing me to, but now I can kind of see the process behind it, which is amazing. Because yes, the body is constantly speaking to us, and even when I was that teenager hunched over the computer, ignoring that sensation, that was my body saying, "Hey, there's work to be done here," but I didn't listen, and I ignored it. And when we develop the ability to listen, it is absolutely listening with the breath. The diaphragm is obviously the thing that's sucking air in through our face to create negative pressure in our chest. And that diaphragm is made of 1/3 fascia. And obviously that fascial network is around the entire body. So when we breathe, we're communicating with our entire body. And if there is a interruption into that extracellular matrix, our body's gonna show us what to do and where to go and how to move to restore and enhance that energy, as any other energetic system would do.
Interesting. Now, do you ever think about this? Because this is like, I would say this, I have a feeling this move, the Sky Punch, will probably be a big part of your brand, just because it's the move has so much kinesthetic meaning behind it. It really sells. I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
But do you ever think about this? Move also kind of resembles how you described your near-death experience drowning.
Interesting. You're right. Yeah. And I've been thinking about, that's a great connection. I hadn't even connected that, because I've been thinking about that lately. How can I need to get into a river. I need to recreate the situation so I can recreate the forces of kind of reaching down to my ankle in that struggle, right? And I've been in similar situations with just on the massage table one time, like a great nervous system level psychosomatic masseuse helped me get into that. And as we were going through different situations, I was contorting and just like breathing, and my body took me into that position where my leg was, up on the table and I was on the floor, just through a massage session. It was wild, but yes, I absolutely think it's got something to do with that, because the ability, in that crouch, to reach down to my ankle, that's exactly the movement pattern that I believe was the biggest contributor to the imbalance in my system. So nice eye there.
Yeah, it's like this kind of like a full circle moment on your journey to like undo what was done. It's really telling you, man, there's so much like your journey has so much like meta to it. For like where you're taking this, even like the postural position of like your fist in the air, like it's like, that's what I dig. I was like, damn, God, this guy's got a freaking like brain. He's gonna be insane for this gym, man. It's so good. Like it's inspiring, because when you see it, like you have all these different elements working. You have like this you have this like functional patterns type philosophy. You're taking all these different ideas, trying to work with what is feeling like the best results. And people are just gravitating towards you. When I did a reaction video, because I remember I came across your video like late one night, and I was like, "What the fuck am I looking at?" And I was just looking at it. I was like, "Holy shit! Like this is far out." I woke up the next morning. I'm like, I gotta like show people this. And I remember when I was watching the video, I tried it. Like I put my hands together and I was doing like this posture, and I felt like my sternum pop, I felt my shoulder pop, and it was really intense. Like it was an immense amount of like tension and force I was pushing into like my thoracic. And I remember like afterwards when I let it go, I was like, oh my god, like that's freaking wild. And the video just went crazy viral. So I've never seen anything like this before, man. It's so fascinating that you're taking this journey. Well, let me ask you this: what are the results you're experiencing over the past, like, say, I feel like the past 6 months is when you really started to refine your techniques. Am I correct?
Well, this technique in particular came about 6 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
which has been nice for getting into an area of tension which I hadn't gotten into anywhere else. Like I've gone to a couple chiropractor. Like there's a great Dr. Stephen Adjusting for Life. He's a great psychosomatic chiropractic, and even he was like, yeah, this midsection is just like we can't get the right vectors into there to create adjustments. So I'd say the benefit from this one is more of a releasing of adhesions. I think that area was very stiff, very immobile. So I imagine quite a lot of dehydrated fascia in that area, and quite a lot of stiff vertebrae in there. So the sounds that are happening there, I believe, are a release of some fascial adhesions of layer on layer, as well as some synovial joint fluid being released there as well. So it's been good, but this alone, I think, is more of a unraveling move, and with some alignment for sure, unraveling and aligning. I don't think it's about fortifying, and that's where I think long term the results that people want is to ultimately stand taller. I think this will help people feel less stiff and less adhesioned, but there's still other work to be done around the posture. And that's why I call the protocol that I offer in the Posture Dojo the Height Maximus Protocol, because I found that there wasn't a lot of people out there helping people with different unique spines like I had. So I get all the kind of odd cases and odd curves, and so I'm like, well, what is it? Scoliosis? Is it kyphosis? Is it like which angle am I doing here? And well, ultimately, I'm like, if you want to stand taller because your posture is compromised, then let's collaborate. Let's share what we're doing. Let's share some techniques. So that's the idea around that community. So that's like this as part of a program has helped with benefits in feeling more free, more energy flow in the body, more alignment. I don't have any pain. I don't live in pain. I'm very agile, all terrain. I have more mobility. I'm very athletic now. I can play whatever sport I want. My balance is improving. Agility is improving. And over the past 6 years, I've increased my height about 2 inches, or I'd say restored my height 2 inches. That's probably more accurate.
I was curious, for really kind of a question for both of you guys, kind of what would you suggest for the counterpart? So Sam, what would you suggest to someone who doesn't have diagnosed scoliosis and doesn't necessarily struggle with imbalances? I mean, I think everyone probably carries misalignments and imbalances in some way. So start with that, and then Quentin, I'm curious too what you would suggest someone does in terms of ball work and nervous system training for scoliosis and that type of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, like having worked with people now, like who the most important part, because I keep looking at, okay, what's the most highest ROI that someone needs to kind of like do early on in that process of, okay, I have scoliosis. Their belief that it's happening to them is one of the biggest limiting factors. Like, it doesn't, like, you can go and do Superman and bird dogs and all this stuff, but if you don't believe that you can really change your posture, you're probably not going to at a deep level, especially at that nervous system level that is holding that subconscious belief and reflex that you've been holding for decades and decades. If you go and do a couple door frame stretches, you're probably not going to actually do much at a deeper level. So I would say that it's about realizing you can do something and that you must prioritize this, and the sooner you do, the better. And then the first step would be unraveling. And it's, I think the myofascial releasing techniques are where most people should be starting, and beginning to listen to their body. And the best way to listen to your body is through your breath. So that's what I would say.
Okay.
Sweet. And then Quentin, if someone comes to you with scoliosis or just severe spinal misalignments, what types of movements do you get them on in general?
What's the goal?
Let's just say, flow for the sake of this. Just smooth flow. So someone who's dealing with hindrances, stiffness. Yeah.
Okay, so they just want like just fitness longevity type goals, not performance based.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've never trained someone with scoliosis, and I haven't done a lot of research with it. But I would probably start with strengthening their feet and getting them on out. Honestly, I don't know exactly what to do. I would probably just have them run the normal, foot strengthening ball work routine and see how they respond. Because I don't know like what type of scoliosis they have. I don't know because there are some people, I have researched some things where you can have scoliosis and have zero pain and dysfunction because your body naturally finds a way to reach a homeostasis despite the muscle imbalances. So Marv Marinovich called this equilibrium. So there are some people out there that do have equilibrium with scoliosis, maybe genetic scoliosis or bamboo spine or something like that. If their scoliosis is causing like severe chronic pain, I would probably want to test weaknesses throughout their body. Like their hip internal and external rotation, their hip abduction. I want to test things like shoulder abduction, shoulder extension, shoulder flexion, shoulder extension, to see if maybe there's an area that's severely off balance, which could be causing a lot of like sort of these issues. Because I don't really, and this is like we're kind of going into like pioneered space, space right now in this with like these training philosophies, because Sam's scoliosis is something that kind of set in later in life. And there's some people who are just born with severe scoliosis, like right out the gate. And I don't know if you can actually fix that. I don't know if you can reshape and like the geometry of their skeletal system came out like a certain way. Now, optimizing it, yeah, I think there are ways to optimize it so they can function better, they can move faster. But man, that seems like such a case-by-case thing. I don't really know what I would do. I would probably just start testing them, running them through like ball work movements, strengthening their feet, and start seeing what happens, and then kind of take it 1 week at a time. It's a very interesting spot to think about, though.
Yes. So the feet is something that's definitely come into my field, this year. And it's gone straight to the top in terms of priorities of addressing posture. Feet, and like I guess one other area of methodology would be the WEC method. The coiling, the spinal engine, the rope flow, as well as the core fist and the feet. I think what they're developing is really interesting around this stuff as well. But the feet for me, from a perspective where the posture is a reflex to the environment, and we have in our ankles such a high sensory system, like it's a sensory organ, and we've got our nervous system is just receiving so much information from the feet and the ankles about how to stack, how to maintain our tensegrity, the tensegrity of our structure. It seems to really, really come from there. And so by working the feet, unraveling the feet, training the feet, we're rippling up a more aligned posture from the ground up, which I think it just makes such absolute sense to be doing. So I think you're really clued in on what, where to start with that. And then the other point I wanted to make about what you said was there's a theory that I came across, which I'll be circling back to when I have more things about it. But for you, I think this is an amazing thing to think about, and where the origin of many of these scoliotic cases come from. They identified people with adolescent idiopathic scoliosis. So adolescent and then idiopathic, we don't know where it's coming from. Scoliosis is there's a common finding that the spinal cord is shortened or contracted, and there's a tethering that happens. And it was the way that I saw this demonstrated was with just a steel cable through a spinal structure. And when the nervous system, essentially the spinal cord, is contracted, whether that's from bracing, fear, some type of reflex to a situation, if that spinal cord is contracted chronically during developmental phases, at whatever young age that may be, there's no room for the spine to grow and elongate. So of course, just like pulling your pajama bottoms with the drawstring, you get the curving, warping situation, which looks exactly like scoliosis. So it's actually like quite this physically obvious concept, which just gets lost. And it's like, well, why, it just makes so much sense to why aren't we looking at this to be like, well, okay, what would cause the nervous system to contract? How can we, shouldn't we be like kind of be helping people understand how they can relax their nervous systems to allow and expand and create more space? Like, why is that not a kind of common skill that would be shared with people who could probably benefit from it?
Yeah. Well, most people don't like to. I mean, you can even attribute to this. Like, most people don't like to work on their bodies until something starts going wrong. Usually, pain is our best teacher. Once some shit hurts, like, okay, it's time to do something about it. Yeah. We're actually, human beings are programmed to ignore pain as long as humanly possible. It's a survival mechanism to keep us, right, moving forward and to not get left behind by our tribe or whatever. But I do think awareness, right, experimentation, trying new things. And I mean, I think about the specialist you were seeing where she was like really against rotation, and I don't even know if that's her original idea or if that's maybe someone else's original idea, and it's never evolved from there. And then, of course, you do explore rotation. All of a sudden, you're getting exponentially better results. So you can really see how experimentation and trying new techniques is kind of hit like we're kind of like in this weird dark age when it comes to human optimization and fitness. Yeah. At least with the medical system. With the independent, the private sector, like me and you other guys fought, WEC method, it's basically the new renaissance of human health. We're trying everything and anything to come up with. But the medical system that is backed by the government, that's backed by large corporations, they have basically come to like a dead stop when it comes to preventative medicine or preventative ideas. And they put all resources into treatment and prescription drugs. At least that's what it seems like to me.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a symptoms addressing system. And so they became structured around they need to create results. And for scoliosis, they need to change that curve. And in order to do the stuff that I'm talking about, it requires discipline and consistency and compliance, which is what they don't want to deal with. Like that's not their job. The orthopedic surgeon's job is not to like help you through a workout program to reverse this based off your particular curve. He'll pass that to the physio but the physios are only just kind of like starting to open their minds to some of this stuff with the Schroth method. So yeah, there's a like their job is to yeah, like you said, remove the pain, not try to explore, experiment through these techniques that require a huge amount of compliance from the patient.
Yeah. Now, Sam. So you established like your I would say your staple move, your trademark move is like the sky fist, which is kind of like a preparation move, as how you're describing it. It helps reset the posture, reset the structure of the spine, get other fascial systems and muscle systems to start communicating better with each other. Where are you going from here? What sort of other methodologies are you implementing the protocol after, say, this is applied and this is working? What are the next couple steps that you're exploring?
It's I'm looking at how we can get these results in other people, and I've realized that the biggest piece is sensation. It's listening to the sensations in the body, in particular pressure, tension, compression. How do those things feel, and then how do we respond to that? That's kind of where my curiosity and experimental development is going, which is along with a deeper connection to the diaphragm in particular, to the state we're putting the nervous system in. That's the part I'm developing. In terms of where I'm already at, like the protocol as it stands is it's a combination of psychosomatic techniques. One, unraveling the tension, the compensatory imbalances that get built, where our fascia is saying, okay, we're trying to hide our posture. We got a curve. I'm gonna build the fibroblasts are gonna lay down collagen fibers, and cement in this structure. The first step is unraveling that, and so this move is partly with that, kind of moving through that. I believe it's literally shearing and releasing glued layers and fibers of collagen. And so then now it's about breathing into a higher aligned state, and it's about fortifying that state. So it's a combination of awareness. It's a combination of, I like a lot of calisthenic body weight. I like a lot of foot training through that. I'm liking some of the functional patterns and WEC method type rotational work to really start creating healthier grooves of force through the body. And that's more on the more on the force end. And I think that's kind of where that's my current situation. I'm with unraveling, aligning, and fortifying. I've created a path for someone to be able to get functional, to get able, to get out of pain, and then from there, it's really about which direction. What goals do you have? What do you want to do with your life? What sports? What hobbies? What feats do you want to do that are going to be conducive and collaborative in your healing and corrective journey? Like, we don't want to do things that are going to tear us down in the wrong direction. Obviously it requires you got to make if you're doing a particular sport, if you're doing a marathon, for example, I'm not about that, because that's just too much breaking down for me in a direction which isn't necessarily great for me. So I'm looking at things that I can do long term that I'm going to be doing, for the next decades.
All right.
Yeah.
Sam, I have a question. I've asked this question before to a chiropractor or physical therapist. It's something I still don't fully understand, but when you're feeling these pops, and you mentioned the glued and sheared layers of collagen, like, as best as you understand it, what's happening when you're threading your body into these positions and these pops are occurring?
Yeah. What's happening? It's my best guess, right? Because I think I'm still learning about it. What's going on? like I think it helps to talk about where I'm starting from, which is feeling this sensation of force and tension moving up and into my torso. And there's a moment where those waves start identifying and mapping incongruency. They map resistance. And so what is that? I believe that is the compensatory line of tension through my body. And so these waves crush through that. And here's where a common comment that I get is like, oh, muscles can't contract. Fascia can't contract. And they don't stretch because they think that I'm saying that I'm squeezing my muscles and I'm squeezing into alignment with my muscles. And they think I'm saying that I'm contracting my fascia, which I'm not saying, although it can contract over slow, long periods of chronic intention. I'm saying I'm torquing fascia, a really important nuance, because of my counter-rotational forces that I'm sending through. I don't need to be able to contract fascia to be able to manipulate the position of fascia in my body. And fascia being the membrane of muscle and joints all throughout the spine. So I imagine a particularly dense kind of vector of tension through my upper thoracic is being torqued and released. The sounds are most likely the synovial joint fluid being released from certain angles of pressure, and therefore being allowed to rehydrate in a healthier form. So I think it's a combination of fascial glide that's being reestablished, as well as synovial fluid from some of the joints being released. And I would be open to considering that there's some type of electrical charge or rewiring happening at that point because of the conductivity of the systems that are really playing a role in this. So that's my best guess.
I've always been fascinated.
How would you guys describe it? Yeah,
I can't do much better. But I will say, like, a good release is like it's significant. There's definitely something, I think, beyond the level of our understanding happening. Sometimes you can have like an emotional release, and you see it with like those chiropractor videos, like, oh, neck released after a decade or whatever. But I feel it too, just on a smaller scale on the day to day. I've noticed, like, if I feel like I'm moving well and my alignment is good, I don't pop as much. And I always wondered if there's like an optimal state where your body is just at homeostasis in alignment, if we're kind of combining some ideas we've been talking about, where you don't have to pop, where your body is just always in a good position. I don't think that's achievable, but I think of that as kind of like something to strive towards.
Yeah, likewise. I don't think the goal is to try and pop. I just feel that those pops are part of this process, and that's happened in my knees. My knees used to pop a lot more, and as I got alignment through my legs and started really building that feet and glute connection, just really feeling torque through there as well, my knees don't pop much anymore at all, and I think that's a good thing. I think popping through regular movement, there's a alignment, misalignment kind of flow happening there, and ideally we want to be popping less. And so, yeah, I would add a word of caution to this type of technique is, like, you don't want to go to, same way you wouldn't go to a chiropractor like every day for a week. This is a rewiring, and I guess the definition I've heard from chiropractors is that they are removing interference. Our bones are conductive, electromagnetically conductive, and when we get adjusted, we're rewiring our brain essentially, and that requires time to integrate. And so, be careful about overdoing this type of stuff. I think it's I do this now maybe once every 1 to 3 weeks, depending on how how I've been moving, how I've been sitting. But if I'm feeling extra, like, okay, I feel like there's something there, I'll do it. But I'm not. This isn't an everyday thing for me.
There is something to that.
Yeah, because if I do it too much, I think I end up feeling a bit more floppy and malleable.
There's something to that popping of the joints, like your ankles, your knees, your hands, your shoulders. And Jake, tell me if you experienced this with the ball we're training. When you do the shoulder circles, did it feel kind of like uncomfortable and really like crunchy your first couple times? And the more you've done it, does it feel like it's like less and less? It's becoming smoother, less audible.
Yeah. You're breaking up a little bit, Quentin, but I think I got the most part of the question there. You're asking about the ball work and how the ball work feels over time.
Yeah, in particular the shoulder circles.
Yeah, for me, the shoulder circles, it's well, really a lot of those things. There's kind of a rhythm aspect where initially you have to figure out the rhythm, which is part a coordination and then part just like your body is in alignment. So I'd say for the initial several times I did it, it was just about trying to find that rhythm. And once I got to that point where I could find the rhythm consistently, it's about speeding up the rhythm. But yeah, it's like finding the coordination is what's required to get to that rhythm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have one more question for Sam before I wrap this up. Something that it's kind of a little off topic. I wanted to save this for the end. So, Sam, how did you get to Burning Man? How does one go to Burning
Man? Yeah, you make a belief that you're going to do it. I wasn't going to until about 3 weeks before, where but at the beginning of the year, I was like, okay, I have to figure out how I'm going to get there, and I didn't have a solution until 3 weeks before. A person with a scoliosis fusion out here in Austin needed some help, and all of a sudden I had a big reason to go to the US right before Burning Man. And so flew into Reno and got the bus out from Reno to the playa, which is one of the better ways to do it because they get the express lane, and some people got held up in line for like 20 hours to get into the playa. And you got to find a camp using connections and Facebook groups. You just got to find it and get out there. And it's an interesting alternative perspective of culture and economy. Which I think was really refreshing, enjoyable. Freedom of expression, right? Radical expression. And I think there's a lot of good stuff. And ultimately, movement as well, because I had been feeling like I needed to really dance. I think dance, ecstatic dance was a key kind of chapter. They're harder to find depending on where you're at. But for me, just getting moving and dancing with music that you love, that makes you feel good, is one of the best things you can do for your body. And I often quip about that, like after speaking to a lot of different experts from different fields and ranges, it's like, well, the best thing we can kind of do is like dance around a fire with people that we enjoy and care about. It's ultimately one of the cure-all solutions that we have for a physical and cultural and spiritual and emotional sense. So that was enjoyable as well. So yeah, it was my first burn, but I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it.
So it's not like a ticket thing. It's something you just got to find a way to get there.
One more comment, Sam, for you is one more kind of. I have these abstract ideas, so I'd like to throw them out towards the end of the episode. Yeah. But I always mix up which one's which. But we've got the sympathetic and the parasympathetic systems in our body. Is it
parasympathetic? The stop in Spanish, parar is stop. Yeah. So the parasympathetic is the stopping, sympathizing with the environment externally so much, and go inside and establish some calm. So that's the parasympathetic.
Okay.
Well, how I would describe it anyway.
Yeah. So the parasympathetic is that's the one that you're consciously able to manipulate, whereas the sympathetic that's your heartbeat and stuff like that you can't.
I wouldn't
Okay.
limit any. I wouldn't limit anything.
Yeah.
I wouldn't limit any ability inside the human body at this
Okay,
point.
that's my question. Really,
Yeah.
is that kind of what the space that you're in is like building conscious the conscious ability to control your body in areas that people consider unconscious processes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what Wim Hof demonstrated, and he went about it like he did some clinical studies to kind of back up what he was doing. But we're getting other experiments where, we've got yogis who are able to regulate their body temperature, and I've been speaking to a couple people about that. I would love to get hooked up to some type of EEG machine and identify the electrical polarities that are happening in my body as I create alignment. What's happening with the electrical frequencies in my body? I would definitely be willing to get hooked up there. I need scientific, mad scientist partners to kind of start thinking about doing this stuff. But I think ultimately, to what Quentin was referencing earlier, we're in this renaissance, we're in this awakening of superhero abilities. Like we already knew that our, skin could heal and we have regenerative capabilities, but like, what else can we do? We can start slowing down our HRV, we can change our body temperature, we can focus our electromagnetic attention to parts of our body that create infrared light that changes the viscosity of the hyaluronic acid that is responsible for the glide of the fascia just by thinking about it. Those are the kind of things that I'm like, well, I have no expectation that everything we know is already out there. I have complete willingness to discover and awaken these things. Because I feel like there's some major dots that are only just kind of being connected. And even if, it ends up looking like, the Qigong and some of these other techniques that have been around for millennia, the ability for us to believe that it works is going to empower it even further because, Qigong looks too subtle. It's like, yeah, it's ancient. It's not for me. But apply, like in whatever way that story needs to get to that person to benefit from it, if they need to see the actual metaphysical process of what's happening for that type of work, to understand what they need to focus on for them to do that type of movement, that type of presence and aware attention in their body, what they need to do. If we can help communicate these things to them, ultimately that's the win, to be able to understand, integrate these ideas that may already be out there in different forms, but are communicated in a way that's going to help someone awaken something that could really help their situation, get them out of pain and live better.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Good stuff, man.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm glad to be talking about this with you guys because it takes a certain level of like experience and just looking at some different things to kind of have these conversations, which we need to have because I think it's a whole new playing field.
Yeah. Appreciate you coming on. You're kind of the canary in the coal mine, for alignment in a way. So it's awesome what you're doing and that you're able to put it out there and that there's a lot of overlap and that comes up. So like we keep saying, what you guys are both doing, bringing these things out, and with the algorithms, what everyone out there on the internet's doing, trying to actually try these things, learn them, see what works. It feels like collectively we're making some progress.
I think so. I mean, we know attention goes where energy flows. Energy goes where attention flows. So it's like whatever we pay attention to, we're creating and building. Sounds right, right? wherever that truth came from, I'm seeing it time and time again. And on this online collective space, obviously as we become more aware that the videos we're watching are literally investing, we're literally venture capitalizing the future based off the ideas, the people, the brands that we pay attention to online. We're literally investing. We're venture capitalizing those. We're seeding those things into the future. And yeah, obviously we're seeing collectively everyone's starting to pay more attention to this. They're like, this feels right. I want to pay more attention to this. I want to invest more into these ideas. So yeah, it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that is as good a time to wrap it up as any. Thank you for coming on, Sam. For everyone who's watching, Sam's links will be in the description everywhere this is posted. Go out, give him a follow, reach out to him. Let's help grow his page. Let's grow our page. Remember, like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate it much. Thank everyone who's been a part of our journey so far, and we will keep on chugging.
Thanks for having me, guys.